I'm from Clima. We are an NGO based in Brazil who works with parliamentarians. We have a network of parliamentarians for climate. And we're also in the National Congress in coordinating the climate working group of the Environmental Caucus. So we're very happy to have this wonderful panel here with climate champions from across the world to talk about a very important topic that is dealing with climate obstruction across parliaments. As we know, I'll just do very quick remarks because I want to hear the experience of parliamentarians firsthand. We are in a very difficult situation across the world. We see that the international negotiations came to a stop, a halt. It's hard to advance this, but at the same time, we should be in a position now with the third generation of NDCs that it's time to internalize this in the national legislation, and that's where MPs have a very important role. At the same time, we have huge polarization across the world. We see democracies are being questioned, and we see that climate policies are being very hard to implement in the practice. And one of these difficult situations is the climate obstruction in the parliaments. We see a lot of misinformation being spread, a dispute of narrative of what is a climate solution. We see fake solutions being proposed. We see greenwashing, and we see many parliamentarians and authorities from the opposition also occupying those spaces. So we prepared 2 questions for our MPs around this and how they have been dealing with this situation. And hopefully we'll get some solutions and some good practices that we can boost and scale internationally. So my first question would be, what has been the biggest obstruction on climate policy in your country, and which strategies have been effective to overcoming it? So, okay, I'll pass.
Oh,
So, Ms. Gancho from South
am
Africa.
I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Greetings, everyone, and to our moderator. For South Africa, it has been a challenge because of the absence of the climate legislation, and that created loopholes because it delayed the implementation of climate policy. But we have recently passed a law which was just signed by the President in July, Climate Change Act. It was just enacted to a law. At least that one eased the loopholes, and now we're able to move as South Africa. And this legislative loophole has been now closed. And also we have embarked on an intense public participation when we were busy with this Climate Change Act. We approached all the 9 provinces of our country, where we incorporated the knowledge from different stakeholders. We also involved our, indigenous knowledge, because it also counts to also be incorporated in this act. So it is assisting us this far. This legislation also talks to the local municipalities, because we feel that it's very important for them to play a key role, because they are the responders. When we experience this kind of climate disasters, local government municipality is the first to respond. So this legislation will also give them a chance to assist our communities. And we feel that as the national government, what our responsibility is to just make sure that we resource the local municipalities, we give them resources, and we equip them so that they can deal with this kind of challenges. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the biggest challenge, speaking from my region, which is also a coal region in Germany, in western of Germany, is of course the huge influence of the fossil fuel industry and the huge lobby power they possess. And so for us in Germany to phase out of coal, to have this struggle, it was a face-off with the power of the fossil fuel industry. And we needed huge demonstration. We needed huge struggle inside our policy to truly phase out of coal. Well, we achieved it in the West. Still not good enough, sadly. In the east of Germany, we still haven't achieved a very clear phase out of coal. So there we must work. Our work has to continue. And also a huge struggle is, again, disinformation. Also in Germany, it's on the rise. Climate denial is on the rise in Germany. So we need to do more educational work, especially also for young people, so to have the understanding about the urgency of the climate crisis.
So, good evening from my side. Thank you for this inspiring panel. Everybody can all take the best practices with us and be empowered for the next month. I think if we want to be successful in climate policy, we have to combine the bread and butter topics with climate action. And we have to convince people that climate action is not just for the rich and the wealthy people, but instead that everybody can profit. So I just want to, actually I want to say two examples, but one is not from Germany, but from Austria, so I hope this counts too. So the first one is a ticket in the mobility sector we passed, and it's basically means that you can travel throughout Germany with just one ticket with a railway for, how much is it now, 49 euros. It was 9 euros in the beginning, which is really, for a lot of regions in Germany, way cheaper than the tickets were before. And even it's easier to commute. You don't need to have a doctor's degree to buy a ticket, which was like that. How was it before? So, and 13 million people use these tickets. So I think it's a good example for a climate instrument, which is not just for one really small group, but can reach a lot of people. But I think we need targeted instruments for different groups in society. So I think that's the biggest challenge in climate policy. And the second thing I wanted to mention is the Klimageld, which means that you take the income you have from the carbon tax and give it back to each person per capita. So each person gets a sum back in the whole population, which has been done in Austria. And I think it's a very good way to demonstrate that, to show if you take carbon tax from the people, it doesn't disappear anywhere, but instead you can also profit. So just to name these two examples, there are, I think, hundreds and thousands more, but I'm awaiting the other answers on the panel, so I will stop here and
Thank you.
hand over to you.
Boa tarde, eu me chamo Duda Salaberti, estou deputada federal pelo Brasil, Minas Gerais. Bom, no Brasil, o grande desafio que nós temos é o enfrentamento à ultradireita, que fortalece o negacionismo climático no nosso território. Mas, além de enfrentar a ultradireita, há um debate sério no Brasil sobre a transição energética. É pacificado que é importante eletrificar a economia, mas eu venho de um território que sofreu inúmeras consequências da mineração, que teve rios mortos pela mineração, comunidades tradicionais destruídas pela mineração. Então, eletrificar a economia pressupõe um avanço de mineração, como, por exemplo, do lítio. E no estado que eu faço parte, que é Minas Gerais, a mineração de lítio tem reproduzido a mesma lógica das mineradoras antigas, violando direitos humanos, desrespeitando a legislação ambiental e destruindo e causando conflito no território local. Então, antes de a gente discutir a transição energética, eu penso que o Brasil tem que discutir questões anteriores, como, por exemplo, um novo modelo de mineração, um novo padrão para a mineração, discutir um outro modelo de mobilidade urbana, porque ainda há no Brasil um fetiche pela mobilidade individual, discutir ampliar a política de reciclagem, economia circular, e é difícil a gente discutir isso no Brasil, já que a gente tem importado a urgência da transição energética. Nós sabemos que é urgente, né, a transição energética, mas há outras coisas urgentes que o Brasil não resolveu. E, infelizmente, nós somos minoria no parlamento para discutir essas questões, já que, com o avanço da ultradireita, o ambiente político ainda é muito ruim para qualquer tipo de avanço de debate. Nós ficamos muito mais discutindo questões ideológicas do que caminhos para a superação da crise climática e fortalecimento da política ambiental do Brasil.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm very glad to stay here. For me, it's a pleasure. In the past, I be a member of Globe. I attend in in different in different assemblies of Globe. Now I'm not still a congressman. Now I am the president of Brazil Environment Agency, and now I'm working with the Brazilian environment policies. It's very difficult. We are working hard to change our rates of deforestation. We are decreasing with a lot of enforcement and other policies. But in this kind of discussion, we have a problem that the world is still addicted to dirty energy, oil. The world still depends the oil, and the companies are very exert great influence. They they are biggest company with so many employees. They have strong power in different countries in the world. Um we have another problem, another challenge is that in many places the environmental cause still does not decide the vote of the voters. The people are concerned about environment, about global warming, but the people don't decide the vote because environment, because global warming. It's a big problem. Uh, we are few people working with this in parliaments, and in many places we are witnessing the growth of the conservative political movements in Brazil. It's very difficult to work with this. Some people believe that the environmental is cause of our poverty. It's insane, this kind of discussion, but it happens. We need to work hard to make the challenge. We need to create new opportunities. We need to change the behavior. We need to change the mind of the people. It's not easy, but we need to do. And thanks again for staying here.
Thank you. We know this is a huge challenge, but there were some victories throughout the years. And how can that's very related to my second question. Do you believe that the climate aligned MPs can become the majority in the National Congress? And how can we mainstream climate in the policies? I think MP Lisa also mentioned, not calling you now to speak, but mentioned the bread and butter policies, how to convince people, the youth. What can be an effective narrative considering that far right and the climate deniers have a very passionate discourse that have been mobilizing people? What can be a counter narrative and an effective strategy for us to mainstream climate and convince people?
Well, South Africa now has been experiencing extreme weather patterns. and as such, it is affecting our food security. But and also it is hindering towards the SDGs and causing significant economic damage. But given the widespread impact of climate change, it has become a common issue for all political parties. We managed to find each other that this one, it has no political ideology. We all need to come together and deal with this that is in confronting us. So these shared priorities, they unite us as different political parties so that we can fight against this climate change. Thank you.
So very important is to build new alliance in societies. For example, with unions. I heard from South Africa that also there were huge talk with unions in terms of phase out coal. The same happens in my region. So it's very important that climate is not a topic from one party or like one organization or one movement. So climate is very important for all social just movements, and we have to act together to talk, especially with other members of society, like unions, like church groups, like different religions, different society groups. So this is one key of success.
I think one thing that the US election taught us is that it's not necessarily better not to mention climate action or climate justice within the election, because despite that, Kamala Harris, she didn't win. So obviously it's not just a problem, quote in quotes, in campaigning, but I think it's the opposite. It can be a really powerful topic, especially when I come back to the profit, when you can convince people that we cannot afford fossil imports, because in most of the countries, I mean, some countries have fossil sources, of course, but usually we talked about this on Monday on the anti-LNG legislators forum we had. Even if you have fossil fuels yourself, there's this fossil curse that your whole economy is depending just on those resources. You don't have to, you don't have to do anything they're just there. So other economic sectors may be not as strong. But most of the countries, especially in Europe, we don't have gas resources. So the question is, can we afford to pay other countries, and especially dictatorships, for these fossil fuels, or do we need the money? Do we need it to ourselves? So if we can produce the energy in our regions, we can keep the money to ourselves. And in Germany, this was very abstract for many people, but when we lost 50% of our gas imports, because Russia didn't, they cut the gas imports, then people suddenly realized that it's very expensive when you lose 50% of the gas from one day to another. And I think, so just maybe for Germany, for Europe, there might be more sensitivity about this topic now. And there's a windows of opportunity still there to tackle this topic and say, okay, do we want to go back to this old dependency? Or is this the time to change? So I think there might be a window of opportunity there, at least for the European countries.
Eu acredito que é impossível enfrentar a extrema-direita dentro de um modelo econômico neoliberal. Então, enquanto a gente mantiver o neoliberalismo dando os rumos da política econômica, a ultradireita vai continuar crescendo e avançando no mundo todo. Mas, se for discutir dentro do neoliberalismo, em que vai postergar um pouco mais a nossa tragédia, eu acredito que o primeiro ponto é mostrar a preocupação da população. No Brasil, um importante instituto de pesquisa mostrou que 97% da população está preocupada com a crise climática. Levar também o debate econômico. Há um estudo da Federação de Municípios que mostrou que nos últimos 10 anos as tragédias naturais no Brasil custaram mais de 400 bilhões de reais na economia. E acho que um último ponto é investir em consciências ecológicas. Quando aconteceu a tragédia climática no Rio Grande do Sul, eu fui à embaixada do Japão e perguntei para o embaixador japonês o que o Japão tem feito para enfrentar as tragédias naturais e climáticas. Eu esperava que o embaixador ia me mostrar obras, estruturas de engenharia, e ele não mostrou nada disso. Ele disse que o que o Japão tem mais feito para enfrentar a crise climática e os desastres naturais é investir em educação. A educação no Japão, a escola no Japão, é o centro de enfrentamento à crise climática. E a partir desse diálogo com a embaixada japonesa, nós replicamos no Brasil algumas propostas de lei para adaptar para a realidade brasileira a importância da educação climática e de colocar a escola no centro de enfrentamento à crise climática e da ultradireita.
Agostinho?
We always says that we need to face the narratives, but how? I believe that we need to use the science, the truth. We can doubt the thermometer. Something very strong are happening with our planet, and we really need to do something. In some parliaments, it's possible to create some dialogue with different sectors. When it happens, sometimes the progress is very slowly, but it's necessary. In Brazil, it's very difficult to discuss with some sectors, but we have a very strong central political in our country when we can do something with some parliamentarians that they are not environmentalists or people that work with environment, but that's what we have. We really need to work with these people and create dialogue and create opportunities to approve some laws. In this week in Brazil, we approved the carbon market. It's a very important regulation in Brazil, and it's not a law made by the environmentalists. It's the law possible, and for us it's very important. We really need to believe that's possible, make challenges. We really need to make the difference with the people that we have, with our parliaments.
Thank you so much. I would like to open for the audience questions. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand. Or comments as well.
Thank you very much. My name is Wilry Peach. I'm a member of Parliament for South Africa. And I'm very, very happy to hear that the coordinated approach is very much becoming the status quo. I believe that the most important aspect or the takeaway from COP29 is again that we see people and countries, or those that are affected now by climate change, are fighting those that will be affected later. And if we take a global perspective with a longer developmental framework, I believe that we can clearly see that this is in the benefit of all the various nations. I can't understand why the green economy cannot be viewed through the lens of a huge opportunity, not only to save our planet, but also to develop new jobs, to create new economic stimulus in economies that have stagnated over many, many years. And I hope that we can kind of package this this COP in a way that really rationalizes this to legislators to see the value in what we're trying to achieve in this project. Thank you.
Any of our panelists want to react?
So basically your question is why there are so many arguments for that. Why can't people just see the logic? But what we have seen in climate debate is that arguments are not the decisive things in the debate. And Duda mentioned that. I mean, a lot of people are still getting a lot of money out of fossil energies. That's the status quo. And they will not leave their fields without fighting. So besides having alliances and coalition, that's very important to be strong and to bring everyone in who's willing to fight with us. We also have someone to fight against. It's the truth. And we have to be brutally open, transparent about the ties between the fossil lobby and the parliament and the governments. We want fully transparency, full transparency, who has what income, who's paid by who, and we have to tell this to voters in the constituencies. And also we have to fight back with laws. We have to, it's not an easy task. It's not like a kindergarten or something. It's a really hard fight, and there are interests at stake. That's just what I wanted to add. And that's why arguments don't count, because money still does count. And I think we have to be prepared, although we're already fighting for so long, for another marathon. But what gives me hope is this investment of over 80% of new investments in renewable energies. So it's the old models you're still trying to get money out of, but those models will not be fueling the future. So that gives me hope that we can finally win this fight.
No one else?
Yeah, thank you. Something that has not been mentioned is social media and the impact of, new media, social media, and disinformation that spreads online. So what do you think we can do about that? Because I think that's a big way in which climate obstruction happens today.
From okay, from my country, we have tools that are assisting us into dealing with the disinformation and all that. We have South Africa's Advertising Regulatory Board and Consumer Protection Act, and it empowers citizens to report misleading green claims or false advertisement. So by collaborating with this platform, they can develop guidelines to combat disinformation, while uploading free speech. So we do have those tools that we can use to deal with such disinformation. And thank you.
This summer in Germany, there were a new study about social media and disinformation. And well, in the last 2 to 3 years, the far-right parties in Germany are using social media for their climate denial. And they figured out that with climate, they can, how to say this, they can bring fear in our society. So they use it. And so it's very important that people, like with educational work, people can understand that how fake news are working, and that if they see it, they can know about that. And so it's also very important that also our media has some competence in that to spot it, and then also to tell the truth about, okay, this like is a fake news campaign, or this is disinformation, and so to be very open about that. And I think this is also a task for every generation, because sometimes we especially talk about the young generation in social media, but I think it's very important that every generation is very aware about what they are reading and what they are posting, what they are sharing, and so they can spot disinformation campaigns when they're starting.
É um desafio global, trazendo como está a realidade no Brasil. Nós temos lutado para regulamentar as redes sociais, mas a extrema-direita tem interditado o discurso alegando que regulamentar as redes sociais é uma forma de censura. Então, é um caso complexo, difícil. Basta ver a relação entre o Elon Musk e Trump, articulando uma política global de fake news e negacionismo climático. Acho que o buraco é mais a fundo, porque a única grande força política articulada no mundo é a extrema-direita. E eles têm o controle sobre as redes sociais. Eu acho que o desafio é como a gente conseguir articular, fazer um pacto global em nome da regulamentação das redes sociais e mostrar que isso não é censura. Pelo contrário, regulamentar as redes sociais é uma forma de garantir a democracia, ou aprofundar a democracia nos nossos países.
Hi, my name is Anna. I think I've met almost everyone here, but I'm a policy advisor. I currently work, and I am from Belém, the city that next year will be hosting COP. And yay! And and I think the point and the question I'm bringing here, it's very close to the reality that we are seeing there. When we talk about obstruction in the parliament, I think it gets very close to the discussion on what people will view as an obstruction and what will be not viewed as an obstruction. And as an example of that is that a lot of political parties and a lot of legislators in our hometown, they are copting this narrative of climate change and of sustainable development, and they are greenwashing into this idea of what they think that a sustainable development is. So we are seeing people that we know they are aligned with huge agricultures and huge destruction of the Amazon rainforest, saying now, oh no, wait, now we have to talk about climate, but how can we talk about, you know, it's a very discussion of greenwashing, but when we go to the parliament, people are like, hey, look, COP30 is going to be very nice. So, yeah, I don't think I'm supposed to be calling names or talking about politics very deeply in that, but this is happening in Belém, and we're seeing social movements, we're seeing indigenous people, we're seeing traditional communities that are being excluded from the social discussion on it, and we are seeing this huge greenwashing movement. So I think my question is, how do you deal with this dispute of the narrative? Because I remember a few months ago that in Europe, the far right were trying to cop the farmers, and they're talking that there are no farmers, there are small agriculture. So we're really talking about agriculture and development. So how do you deal with this balance that we defend climate change, we defend sustainable development, but not this type of development?
Thank you, Anna. If I could also add to that, maybe a parallel between the green hydrogen as maybe a fake solution and greenwashing, and can international trade play a role in, okay, you're saying this is green, but it's not really green. This is not really a climate solution.
Okay, very easy question, but no, kidding. So maybe I can pick the examples of the farmers, because I dealt a lot with the protests of the farmers beginning of the year, because the German government wanted to cut down the subsidies on gasoline for farmers, but there were also big protests in the whole of Europe from farmers, basically not to change anything, to put it in a nutshell. And what we tried to do, or what we tried to do for the last years as Green Party, is trying to underline the common things. So, for example, the farmers in Germany, they progressed the energy transformation, the energy transition, because usually the land where the windmills are built, or biogas power plants, or even big solar power plants, are they are on the land of the farmers. So they are progressing the green movement on the one hand. So we're trying to see the common side and where we have common interests, basically, and focus on that, and not focus on the division and of society. But that does not really answer your question about greenwashing, but that's just, I wanted to pick up that thing about the farmer protests. It's still a long way to go. It's still a long discussion, but I think the farmer discussion you described is more of a Brazilian thing, maybe. So I don't want to hand this over to Tuda, but I think that the farmer lobby in Europe is working maybe a bit differently, because we have, first of all, we don't have the Amazon forest to protect, which is sad, and it's a pity. But we already erased all of the forests, so you still have something to protect. What do you think about the discussions in Belém?
Você já contribuiu bastante e é um paradoxo, é uma contradição. Eu acho que vocês concordam comigo de que está ruim com a COP, mas estaria pior sem a COP. Então, a COP e os debates climáticos são carregados de contradições que são contradições que a gente vive dentro do nosso modelo econômico. Obrigada, meu bem. O que eu posso dizer, formas como a gente tem atuado internamente para mitigar essas contradições. Então, especificamente sobre a COP em Belém, aí foge um pouco da sua pergunta, nós eu enviei uma indicação para o Executivo, para o Agostinho, para toda a equipe do governo Lula, sugerindo que na COP no Belém aconteça também a COP das crianças. Eu acho que é importante a gente trazer as crianças para o debate climático, primeiro porque elas são e serão as mais afetadas, e acredito que elas têm o poder de nos influenciar e nos educar muito. Uma outra questão que nós fizemos é indicar também para o governo federal que as sessões do Congresso Nacional ocorram em Belém, para que todos os parlamentares do Brasil experimentem o que é a COP, entendam a dimensão da COP. Então, repetindo, não tem como a gente superar essas contradições dentro do nosso modelo econômico, mas tem como mitigá-las, diminuí-las. Eu acho que fortalecer a COP, fortalecer esse espaço é o caminho. Porque se está ruim com ela, imagine sem ela, né? Acho que é isso.
Anyone else has any other comment? Yes, please.
I just wanted to say that I wanted to underline that it's like this. Every COP, also when it takes place in Brazil, there are parts of hypocrisy and greenwashing within COP. Obviously, in Brazil, it would be much less than it is in Azerbaijan or Dubai. But we all have to defend. So our voters, our constituents, they are asking us, why do you go to COP? You know, is it really 100% green, climate neutral and fair and just? And we have to be also transparent about this, as you said. Say, no, it's a dilemma. We have more things to tackle and we have things to criticize. Maybe nothing's to criticize about a COP in Brazil. We will see. But we can assure you that, we will be transparent and highlight the good things. But also, we're living in a world which is not perfect. And we will also highlight this towards our constituents and people who want to have these answers.
Thank you so much. We have time for one more.
Hello, I will speak in Portuguese. Bom, me apresentar, meu nome é Rafael Seba, eu estou aqui na COP pela Sociedade Vegetariana Brasileira e eu gostaria de perguntar às parlamentares e ao Rodrigo qual a perspectiva que tem sido discutida nas suas atuações em relação aos sistemas alimentares, porque a gente fala muito de energia e é evidente porque a energia é a principal responsável pela emissão de gases do efeito estufa, mas a forma como a gente produz e consome alimentos também tem um papel central nesse debate, inclusive porque envolve também energia, né? Então, eu gostaria de ouvi-los e já trazer como um elemento para puxar a discussão um projeto que a SVB tem de parceria com municípios de incentivo a alimentos da agricultura familiar do Brasil, alimentos que têm a ver com uma cultura alimentar brasileira, leguminosas, frutas, verduras, em um contexto em que a gente tem, não só no Brasil, mas no mundo inteiro, um acesso cada vez mais comum a ultraprocessados e uma perda de relação com alimentos de verdade. Então, eu gostaria de ouvi-la sobre isso e quais caminhos que a gente pode seguir a partir desse debate. Obrigado.
A huge part of the emissions in the world is made by the land use, and the land use is agriculture, basically. In Brazil, we already deforested 60 million hectares in the Amazon to create cattle. In other regions, in our savanna, the Cerrado, we already destroyed 0.5% to produce grains, soy, corn. It's very difficult, but we need to create some different policies, strategic policies, to change the food behavior of the people. It's not easy. It's not easy, and with climate change, it's possible that we lose some annual productions of some food because the global warming. It was very sad when it happens, but probably it will occur. It will create hungry. It will create different problems. But I believe that's necessary. This kind of discussion is not easy because we are talking about the behavior of the people. The market produces what the people want to eat, and it's very difficult. In Brazil, we are controlling the deforestation with enforcement, with traceability of some productions, as meat or another products, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult.
Thank you, Agostinho. We are running out of time. I would like to ask for your final remarks, closing thoughts on what are you taking back home from this discussion.
Let me first commend the Globe for creating these kind of platforms. You know, having knowledge sharing and also experiencing sharing for different countries. I want to commend the Globe for that. And I think by understanding the impact of our actions or inactions, we can collectively lobby our governments and to drive ambitious climate action and for the benefit of our nation, our planet. Thank you very much.
Also, thank you from me for bringing us together. And I'm looking forward to see you all in Brazil next year. But I really would like to add something about consumers, because I think it's not only an individual decision, because sometimes the price plays also a role. So in Germany, if animal productions from industrialized farms are cheaper than from organics, this is also a huge problem. So we have to change that. So people should be able to have good food, and also the price should be included, especially if the price is burning down the Amazon.
Thank you. So we heard from South Africa that a new climate law was passed, and I think this is really fundamental. We cannot do climate policy without binding laws. This might sound very basic to you, but it's not. Not everybody agrees to this. That's why I'm saying we need laws which are binding also for other coalitions and which cannot be removed as easily. At least you have to pay a political price in public to remove it. So we need these binding laws to fight the fossil lobby also. And those laws are passed in parliament. So we as parliamentarians have the most essential role. It's great that the governments are negotiating. They're doing the biggest job and greatest job at COPs. But in the end, parliaments are decisive. And for me, it's very inspiring to be here with you today, because everybody sees that we're not alone. Because in the parliaments, obviously not everybody is a climate parliamentarian. But when you come to COP, we see there's a majority of people here, legislators. So we have to really work together and form this coalition and exchange ideas, best practices, how we can get more people of all parties within our coalition in our parliament. So thank you so much. I took a lot with me.
Quero agradecer, obrigada pela escuta, pela fala, pelas perguntas. Espero encontrar todas vocês na COP no Brasil. E tenho certeza de que o Brasil, na COP, vai ter uma presidência alinhada e preocupada com a questão climática e não com o lobby do petróleo. Isso é a certeza que o Brasil vai passar para o mundo. Nós não vamos ter a estrutura de Dubai, a estrutura de Baku. Mas teremos o que é mais importante para a COP, que é uma presidência preocupada e alinhada com a questão climática. Então é importante vocês virem, estarem conosco. Vão ter as contradições, mas alinhando a fala final com a sua pergunta sobre alimentação, vegetarianismo, veganismo, eu tenho a convicção de que, eu aprendi isso com as comunidades tradicionais, de que o futuro é ancestral. E levar a COP para o Brasil é mostrar isso, de que o futuro é ancestral. Então, por isso é importante, no ponto de vista simbólico e político, a COP estar lá. Então, espero encontrar todos vocês. E em Belém, a partir do diálogo com as comunidades tradicionais, indígenas, quilombolas, nós vamos ter acesso a uma outra forma de debater e organizar a sociedade que passa numa relação não antropocêntrica, mas ecocêntrica com o planeta. Isso envolve alimentação. E acho daí a importância da COP em Belém. Espero encontrar vocês lá. Obrigada.
Thank you so much for the invitation. For us, it's very important, this kind of experience. We need to improve our parliaments with people who works with these issues, who believe that we really needed to do something. We need to be fast because it's terrible what it happens with our climate. Thank you so much. Thank you, Globe, for this.
Thank you all for your presence, for opening this space in this very disputed schedule that I know everyone is running around between negotiations, side events, all the pavilions. And I thank you so much for all the MPs that came here and the authorities. We really need to insulate our climate policies, really need to advance this agenda as fast as we can. We know it's very challenging. We're still a minority. But people that believe in this agenda, that believe that we need climate action, they are the majority. And we need to remember that. Thank you so much. And because of that, we really need to assure that not only the deniers are inside of COP, because they are going to be here, but we need to assure that the champions are going to be at COP as well. So we have to keep... Thank you. We can't just sit back and just accept that the fight is done. It's not a sprint, it is a marathon. We're going to face resistance all throughout the transition. And we have to make sure that our opinion is also expressed there. So that's why we, together with Globe and other networks of parliamentarians, we're pushing for a parliamentarian constituency being formalized here at the UNFCCC structure. I hope that the MPs that came here today and civil society that also is participating in the space can back this proposition, can push the Secretariat, and that by COP30, we actually have a parliamentarian constituency also sitting at the table and pushing our executive branch. Thank you so much.